So a short video about the fundamental counting principle. So I'm just going to slide back to the previous page here just so you can get a chance to check your practice problem. So to use a tree diagram to illustrate the sample space for flipping 3 coins. So the first coin flipped, I'm either going to get a heads or a tails, and then for each one of these options I need the total possible outcomes for the next event, which is flipping a second coin, again either heads or tails, and then the same process again. So I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possible outcomes. So if we think about this for a brief moment, when we had one coin, there were 2 possible outcomes, and then 2 coins, there's 4 possible outcomes, but then 3 coins, there's actually 8 possible outcomes. So the fundamental counting principle is actually going to explain why this is going to be. And I want you to think about, if there were 4 coins, what do you think the number of possible outcomes is going to be? I think there's two likely answers that I would hear here. One being 16 and the other one being 64. So we're gonna move forward, or we're gonna move forward to the fundamental counting principle. See if we can determine what that answer should be. So the fundamental counting principle, it tells us that it's a little complicated, but when you see it in action, it's very understandable. If there are m ways, one thing can happen. So there were 2 ways that there were 2 possible outcomes in flipping a coin. So, if there are m ways, it's just m representing a number, ways that something can happen, and n ways that another thing can happen, then the number of ways that both of those things can happen together is going to be the product of those 2 numbers, m times n. So in this first example, there's some game that exists in which you flip a coin and then draw a card from a deck of cards, and then roll a number cube. And then I use the fundamental counting principle. That's this FCP. I usually don't write out the whole phrase fundamental counting principle. You'll see it abbreviated as FCP. Use that to determine the number of possible outcomes for a coin, a card, and then the cube. So there's 2 possible outcomes for the coin, there's 52 possible outcomes for the card, and then there's 6 possible outcomes for the cube. So I'm going to multiply these 3 numbers together because that's what the fundamental counting principle is asking us to do. So there's 2 ways that this event can occur, 52 ways that something could happen here, and 6 ways that something could happen here. So the fundamental counting principle says if I'm going to put all 3 of them together, there are 2 times 6 times 52 ways. So 52 times 6 times 2 is 12. So 4, 1, 0, 0, 5, 2, 6, 2, 4. There are 624 possible outcomes here. So practice problem, go ahead and pause the video, work on the practice problem yourself, and then you can refresh it, or you can hit play again when you are ready to see the response. So I'll wait about 10 seconds, make sure you paused. Okay, so there are shoes, we have 6, shirts, we have 7 and 11, 11 for shorts. So when I multiply all 3 of these numbers together, I'll get 77 times 6, which is 462 different outfits can be made with 6 pairs of shoes, 7 shirts, and 11 pairs of shorts.